Hi everybody, welcome back to Businesswomen Talking, a podcast where we hope to dive into the stories, experiences, and insights that shape the world of businesswomen today. I'm one of your co-hosts, Lindsey Mead.
Hi everyone, I'm the other co-host, Amanda Dernovshek, and we're super excited to have you back for the second episode of Businesswomen Talking. Today we have a really special guest, Julie Holton Smith, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today and hearing more about Julie and her experience as a businesswoman. Julie, introduce yourself.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm honored to be the first guest on this podcast, and I'm a big fan already just because of the topics that you're going to be talking about and that we get to hear from real women, real stories, so I'm really excited to be here.
Well, we're so happy to have you and really looking forward to hearing from you. We wanted to give people a little bit of insight into your actual business that you run and own and some of your other community involvements. So we wrote up a little bio so folks out there can get to know Julie a little bit more.
So Julie is very accomplished and has done quite a number of really interesting things. So forgive me for reading a bit on this bio, but she's the founder and principal strategist of mConnexions, which is a full-service marketing and communication strategy that focuses on social media and digital marketing solutions for their clients, which is obviously drives everything in today's world. You're a 3-time Emmy Award winner, which is super interesting to me. And you are the host and executive producer of Expert Connections, which is a podcast that airs on YouTube. You also co-host another podcast called Think Tank of 3, which is similar mission to ours. It encourages and supports and empowers women in the marketing space. So before launching mConnexions in 2017, you led a strategic marketing directives for another law firm in our area with about 70 attorneys. Or 50 attorneys in 70 areas of practice of law. So very diverse background, really interesting things that you've been involved with.
And that's not all. Julie and I actually met through your involvement with Startup Grind in Lansing. So Startup Grind is a part of a global community that really provides a platform for startup businesses in varying industries. And Lansing has a chapter, which Julie is the director of. And that's how I got to know her as I've started kind of getting into AI and technology law space and helping businesses with their startup ventures. So super really cool and innovative work that Julie's doing there. With her community involvement, Julie also volunteers as an editorial committee member for Legal Marketing Association's Strategies magazine, which is a mouthful, but very cool, and sits on the advisory board of Epiphany Now, which, as I understand it, is an organization that's essentially promoting acts of kindness.
What a resume. That's amazing. I actually
when you all say it, it sounds like I never sleep. So thank you.
I actually love running through all of that and taking a moment to recognize all of the super cool things that you've done in your career. It's probably fun for you to sit back and reflect on those experiences too. So thanks for giving us the time to amp you up a little bit. But I want to reserve some time for us to really get into the nitty-gritty and the details today. I also want to do a special shout out to our current law clerk who helped us come up with some great questions for you. Her name's Olivia Reed. So the first thing I want to ask about is this Emmy. Take us back to when you won the Emmy. What was that like? And give us some insight on that experience.
It feels like a lifetime ago. I mean, and by the way, I encourage everyone to take a moment to look at your resume because especially when you're having a down day, you'll remember all of the amazing things that you've done that you forget about on a day-to-day basis. So with the Emmy, it's really funny. I don't actually have memories of the ceremony itself. Mm-hmm. I never really cared about awards, but I have 3 Emmys. The one that stands out most to me is a national Emmy that our TV station in Minneapolis won for our coverage, our breaking news coverage after the 35W bridge collapsed. And that one means so much to me because this was a major event that I lived through, my community went through, in addition to it being, the quote-unquote news story that we covered. Mm-hmm. So, the impact of that story and the subsequent stories and what, the years of coverage, frankly, and how from that one disaster, states all across the country made changes to their laws regulating bridges and regulating how things were done and the construction and just everything that was brought to light during that whole period is what really stands out to me. I mean, lives were definitely impacted even beyond the initial disaster. So that's the Emmy that means the most to me.
It's really cool. So that sounds more journalism focused, but how did that shift into marketing? Like, what was the inspiration for that role shift?
That's a great question, because initially I had no idea that I was going to land in the world of marketing, which I've been in now for, almost 15 years, which feels crazy to me, second lifetime. For me, it was all about the storytelling. It was all about how can I tell a story to help other people? So in news, it was very much about telling stories, and my ultimate goal was to make the world a better place, and how do we do that but through freedom of the press, and so that was why I was drawn to journalism from a young age. From there, the shift into marketing became, the 24/7 burnout of the news industry after, more than a dozen years. I was like, okay, this is not where I want my life to continue going, so what comes next? How do I continue to tell stories in ways that help people? Well, that's exactly what marketing does. We tell stories through a number of formats and fashions that help businesses to tell their story, which then leads to sales, brand awareness, all of those things that we need for businesses to thrive.
And when I think about marketing, the first word that comes to mind is creativity, and constantly changing and being creative to catch people's attention and retain people's attention. So how do you handle the days when you're just not feeling creative?
Yeah, and that happens a lot, right? I think no matter what industry we're in, we have days where we're really nailing it and we feel really good about what we're doing, and then we have days where it is just not coming. I think for me, the biggest thing in my career has been to listen to what my body needs on those days, what my brain needs, my mental health. Am I not creative? Are the juices not flowing because I need to pause? Or am I distracted by other things going on that need to be addressed? The other thing that I think that's really important when it comes to creativity, or whatever it is that's blocking you, is to turn to your team, your community, your tribe, whoever your people are. There are days when I need to turn to my team and say, hey, who's got an idea that can help me break through this, rut that I'm in? And I make sure that my team also feels comfortable coming to me, because I think when there's too much pressure to always excel, then we don't leave room for the human side of us. And it's really important to me that my team recognizes that they recognize when they have that need, and they also feel that they can speak up about it.
In light of that community piece you're talking about, Julie, and knowing that your Think Tank of Three podcast is really creating a platform for women as well, kind of like we're doing here, how have you managed to tailor that into your community involvement, your marketing strategies, your business ventures? How have you prioritized creating that platform in your own work?
Oh, I love that question, because to me, I think the most important aspect of my entrepreneurial life is building community and supporting the other people in my community. I truly think that we were not meant to live life alone. We're not meant to do anything alone, and that definitely includes business. And so when it comes to the community, and especially for women, I think, I always say I kind of became an accidental feminist because I was born a woman, and so just my lived experiences are that of a woman. And so, I had that experience as a 19-year-old who was working in TV news and was told I was climbing the ladder too quickly for a young woman my age. And, right out of the gate, and I didn't even recognize it was the people that I told around me that were like, wait a minute, your boss said what? And so, you start to live these experiences and you realize that this is happening to other people. Yeah. And the more we talk about it and the more we share how we overcome those challenges, the stronger we all are. And so when it comes to my business now in the community, I find what I do a lot of, in addition to marketing strategies and the creative side of our marketing agency, I talk a lot with business owners. What are you experiencing within your business? And sometimes those are business challenges, and we work through those, and other times they're personal challenges. And the reality is men and women often face similar but slightly different challenges. And I think for me, being able to address that head on and be able to talk about it openly, it really is helpful. It's what has grown my business. It's what I see now helping to grow other businesses and nonprofits. And so the more we talk about this and the more we do focus on it, the better off we all are.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And that kind of makes me think about something that Lindsey and I have talked about and we've had trainings on in the firm, which is imposter syndrome. This idea that I deal with this. I've gone to college. I got an MBA. I went to law school. I'm an attorney. And some days I doubt, like, am I supposed to be here? Am I supposed to be at this table having this conversation and doing these things? And it kind of reflects back on what you said earlier about look back at your resume and all the things you've done. But in the day-to-day, it's easy to kind of doubt yourself and think, am I supposed to be here? So I'm just curious if you've experienced that, and what have you done to address that feeling and overcome that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how many of us have dealt with imposter syndrome in some way or another? When I first launched mConnexions, I remember I was actually like sitting in my living room because, virtual agency, so I'm at home and totally rejecting the office. I'm not going to do that. So I'm like sitting at home in my living room, and I'm about ready to take a call with a prospect who had a question. And I was thinking, like, what if I don't know the answer? Like, I don't think I'm going to know the answer. And it's just like my brain started telling me, like, you don't know what you're doing. Why are you doing this? Who do you think you are? And I took the call, and of course, I knew all the answers. And I knew what to say if I didn't know the answer and how to find the answer and get back to, I knew all the things, but our brain will try to trick us. And I think that for me, the biggest thing was to talk about it and to have someone in my corner when I'm feeling that way and need the guidance or reassurance to talk about it, because it's so much harder to just suffer through that alone. And for me, the biggest thing was time. As time went on, I felt more and more comfortable. Which makes sense. Like, once you have the experience down, then you kind of, pull from that experience. I also learned very quickly that sometimes I needed to recognize who or what circumstances were making me feel inferior. Because oftentimes what I found was maybe it was a client I shouldn't take on. Maybe there was a person that we weren't the right fit for, a business that wasn't going to be good for us, let alone for them. And oftentimes in business, we think, oh, we need to take all the clients and we need to do all the things, provide all the services. And that is not the case. And so I think sometimes too, look at who or what or why you're feeling those feelings, and it might not, like, if there might be another outside energy that's making you feel that way, and it might not be right for you.
Well, I think we tend to, maybe this isn't just a woman's experience, but I know something that Amanda and I tend to do is doubting yourself more about those things, of saying, like, I'm the wrong fit in this puzzle piece, not everybody else at this table. And I love that you've said that about thinking about, it's not you. Maybe it is something else external that's really creating that conflict.
Absolutely. And I think to add to that, I know plenty of men who also experience imposter syndrome or doubt or have, different things that come up in life that make them, unsure of who they are and what they're doing. We also know, though, that research shows that women do outwardly show this more than men. And so I think knowing that's half the battle. Knowing that, for instance, there was a study that came out that shows that when it comes to applying for a new job, women will make sure that they meet every qualification and they check every single box. And even then, they might be on the fence about whether they're qualified or not, or whether they should put themselves out there, or maybe that salary is higher than I think I deserve. Whereas men might know, like, oh, I don't have any of this, but I'm going to go for it anyway. And so, I think that there are reasons within our culture and how we grow up, how we're raised, the media we see, all sorts of reasons why that happens. But for us, it's very important to just recognize that it happens. And then that can help us start to alter our behaviors, or, even to know, like, hey, I'm having a confidence issue in this area. I'm going to work on that.
When you were talking about mConnexions and starting that, like, a fully virtual, marketing team and business, I'm curious about maybe how you've grown more comfortable with that, or what's, like, a big challenge you're facing now, something that's impacting you years into this business.
I think one of the biggest challenges that I've faced, that I know others share that they've faced, is you don't know what you don't know, and you don't want to learn the hard way, right? Like, who's like, oh, just give me all the challenges, I'll fail at all of them, but then I'll learn. Like, no. I remember at one point even saying to a friend during COVID, because, so much was changing and none of us knew initially how to respond. And I remember saying, like, I'm so tired of learning everything the hard way. Like, why can't I just, like, be able to respond before something happens, like, just know it's coming. But unfortunately, that's not the way life works. So I think, like, some of the biggest challenges, the way we prepare for them when we don't know what they're going to be, is to, again, surround ourselves with people who have been there before, and professionals who are part of our kind of business care team, if you will. For instance, I before I even launched full-time, I sat down with my attorney at Foster Swift to put together, unsolicited by the way from you guys, you did not ask me to talk about this, but they did not ask, but sat down to put together all of the contracts that I would use for my clients. And he really made sure that I understood too, like why these things were worded the way they were, what protected me, what didn't. And I would say the first couple of years, especially when I had questions, like he was always there for me, to talk to about and say like, hey, this client wants to change this, like, does that hurt me? Is it okay? Yeah. Because what that did was that set me up to be able to protect myself and protect the business, especially with the knowledge. There was a situation, a challenge early on where our team had like just completed this beautiful website project. We did a whole logo design, A to Z, we did everything for this new startup. And at the 11th hour, even though he had approved everything, suddenly the business owner didn't want to pay, and so I remember calling the attorney at the time, like, what in the world do I do? Can I pursue this? Do I go after it? And then it came not just like the legal contracts that we put together, but more of like that kind of practical side of what would it look like if I tried to pursue this. And so I think that's what's really helpful. After that conversation, it was like, okay, well, we're out all this money, and that really sucks. But I can go to sleep at night knowing that I did everything right, and I'm not going to put myself in further jeopardy by trying to pursue. So I was able to make my own decisions on what would come next. But it was because I had people in my corner who had experience and could guide me on, in order to make those decisions.
Yeah, I agree with you that having the community is so important. It's also difficult sometimes to figure out where to find those people, and how do you, like, I reflect on my experience, and I think that my experience became more positive when I found a mentor that really invested time in me and teaches me things and talks to me about all the things that we face in the legal field. So how did you go about finding that community?
That's an excellent question. That's actually part of why we created the Think Tank of Three podcast, because not everyone can find that community, or maybe they're in a position at work where they feel stuck in the moment, and so we wanted to be an extension of that. Like, hey, we're the girlfriends that you can just call up anytime. Like, maybe you can't really call us, but like you can listen to us and hopefully relate.
Questions? Like, could you call?
We
in
do.
And be like, Julie, talk about this issue.
Yeah, we do, and have women on, and part of that podcast too is not just talking about the successes. Initially, we were saying something like in our opening line about like, we talk to successful women, and then we found that the most successful of successful women were like, well, I haven't made it yet. Like, I can't be on the podcast. And it's like, well, that is exactly why you need to share your story. Like, no woman thinks she's made it. Right. We're all still striving for something. So we started talking about like how we're just everyday women sharing stories. But what I found early on was a lot of the people in my circle were men and continue to be men. And frankly, just because this is a podcast for women doesn't mean that men won't listen or men aren't invited. And the reality is, like, we need those allies. We need the men who are on our team and going to help us get further, and who recognize that we're going to help them get further as well, because we have qualities that will complement theirs. And so early on, I often was the only woman at the table, and often still am, especially in the startup world, in the tech world. And I'm okay with that. I'm very comfortable with that. But I think the more you network, the more you push yourself outside of that comfort zone. I actually don't love networking. Despite having a podcast, despite like owning a business and having to do this, I even like ran a monthly networking event, and I dreaded it every single month. Like once I was there, it was great, but I was like, oh my gosh, I have a million other things to be doing. Make yourself go. Do the events. And then once you're there, make yourself talk to the people and seek people out who are in similar situations. You have to actually work to build your tribe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, one final question we want to ask you, Julie, and we kind of want to tailor it with all of our guests to come as a kind of an imparting wisdom, both to yourself and to other people in the community. What do you wish you knew when you started that you could give to someone starting their business venture today, essentially? A note to self that's also to someone starting tomorrow.
Yeah, I would say, like in this moment, off the top of my head, no one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just you. Like, no one
You're
knows
not
what they're
alone.
doing. They're all making it up, and make up what works for you. So, like, seek out, learn, find the mentors, find the tribe, the community of people who are going to support you, and then go with your gut. Like, I think that's the other big thing I would say is trust your instincts.
Yeah.
You have instincts for a reason. Now, know the difference between the voice of fear, your instincts, and an overconfidence, because sometimes ego can get in the way as well. But I don't know. I think if I had followed my gut every single time, I would be a win.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really nice to chat with you and hear more about your story, your experiences, and I mean, I've learned something from you, and I'm excited to continue getting to know you even better, and I hope that all of our podcast listeners enjoy the information that you've shared today.
Me too. I echo that. Like, even though we've known each other through other community networking opportunities, Julie, it was nice to sit down and kind of go through the gamut of that resume and hear your experiences here and there with all of your different ventures. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun, and this is the whole point, right? When you start talking and sharing, you find so many things that are relatable.
Yes.
So thanks for the podcast itself. That's going to help connect women.
Thank you.
If you'd like to join us on a future episode of Businesswomen Talking, please reach out to us at info@fosterswift.com. We'd love to hear from you about your stories, the successes that you've had, the challenges that you faced, and we'd love to provide this platform for you to share that with us. So please reach out at info@fosterswift, and then you can find my contact information and Lindsey's contact information attached to this episode.
As well as Julie's. We'll link to Julie's contact information she chooses to share so you can learn more about her business as well. But thank you so much for joining us on our second episode of Businesswomen Talking, and we'll see you next time.